Hi everyone, my name is Ellysse Dick. I am a policy manager at Meta. What that essentially means is I work with our product teams to make sure that our products follow our principles of responsible innovation and are durable solutions for bringing the world closer together. So we have a very short period of time to be together today, so I'm going to jump right into it. I'm joined here by Jill Campbell from the Meta product team. So we have a builder of tools for creators. And then I also have Brandon Egolf, who is a user of AI tools for for XR creators. So today we're going to have a little conversation about where we're at today as this nascent technology is sort of being used to superpower our creators, both on Meta platforms and across our ecosystem, and what we can do to make sure we're really unlocking the potential of this technology. So, Jill, we'll start with you. You're really the person that's leading Meta's effort to integrate AI into our creator tooling. Can you talk a little bit about why that's a priority for you and your team?
I can. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jill Campbell. I run Avatars, the cartoon people. Brandon was telling me that my bio was mystifying, so I would clarify. I run the Avatars team, and then my side hustle is figuring out how we use GenAI to supercharge creators. And so I look at the GenAI stuff as existential, as a catalyst for creativity, because it helps us deliver on speed, and do things a lot faster. Diversity, a lot more folks can become creators because there's so many specialized skills in XR. And the fact that you can use GenAI to help lift up places where you might not have skills, you might not have companions that have skills, or you might have skills, but you want to take them further. So speed, diversity, and then opportunity. Because we've seen a ton of places where creators can take the GenAI tools and take them further and create new landscapes of opportunity. So that's why it's existential for us.
Awesome. All right, Brandon, from the creator side, obviously you work with a wide range of XR developers who may or may not be using some of the tools today. How would you describe the perception of generative AI tooling among the developer community?
I'm Brandon Egolf. I'm the founder and CEO of Clique Games, one of the largest VR publishing companies. When we're working with any of our studios or any of the games, even just doing consulting, there seems to be this disconnect between what can we build and what do we want to build, right? That's like the biggest hurdle is every team has these grand visions and then that ends up being defined as scope creep. And then things can't get built because it's just improbable to do for small teams on a tight budget. But with AI, we're not trying to replace anybody on the teams. And there's no idea of like, let's just make everything the easiest like response prompt humanly possible. What we're seeing across all the teams is using it to empower the things that they're already doing. So a lot of teams would have spent, 30 minutes an hour writing a script for a basic program, and then now they're just throwing it into Cursor or Gemini, and there you go. You have the entire thing written so that you can go in and do the intensive work. The other thing that we've seen that's really interesting is one of the features on the Meta platform is A/B testing your key art. So what we've ended up doing is creating AI art that we then have an artist go in and touch up, and then we test that art, and then we see how it performs. If it performs better, we have that artist come in and then make a new version of that art. Previously, we would have made one key art for a launch and then sat for half a year. We can hire more people and we have more of a reason to bring contractors in. We know that these just template tests that we're throwing out there are working. It's unlocked so many doors for us to bring in more people because we can test things easier. We can iterate and try. So take that as far as you want with both games and on an individual level, on a company level, and you've got this kind of mass exodus of like these ideas are impossible to okay, maybe we can build these.
I love that. So before we get really into the questions of where we're going and what we need to do, I want to make sure we're grounded in what we're talking about when we say AI affiliate content. So Jill, I'll make it to you if you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been building. I know that you've been very busy over there.
For the metaverse, we think of what we're building scenes, worlds to inhabit, characters that inhabit those worlds, and then the logic that brings it together in the experience. And what we're finding is that we can use GenAI as a catalyst for creativity across all three. And so what we have in market today is mostly for scenes where you can use textures, meshes, audio, skyboxes, TypeScript. what we announced today, I think is maybe why I got a leading question. What we announced today is that we're expanding to characters. So you can have voice-powered, AI-driven NPCs, non-playable characters, that show up in your world and environments and available in more countries. And so for us, this starts to paint together, like, I love what you said about there's all these folks who want to participate as creators in the metaverse, but it's 4 to 10 really unique skill sets to build a cohesive experience. And so lowering that barrier to entry by having toolkits to help get ahead on scenes, toolkits to help get ahead on characters, and eventually toolkits to help you get ahead on logic, starts to paint a picture where we dramatically lower the barrier to entry and change the definition of who can be a creator. So that's what we do.
So, Brandon, what is your perception of these kinds of tools that Meta
Yeah,
and other
what's your
platforms
perception
start
of
rolling
them?
out?
I
Hear 'em.
love them. It's actually incredible. One of the things in Horizon Worlds that I got to try in one of the experiences called Bobber Bay, right? There's a guy in a shop and you can talk to him, and it's an AI like bot. You can ask him questions, and I found myself just like here at AWE, they have the custom GPT that they train. You can ask questions about the event. I was able to learn so much more through never having a tutorial in that game, just asking the guy like, "Where am I supposed to go?" and then getting an actual answer. So I imagine the extrapolation over time for all of the games like in our library and the games we'll see in the future and create. What does it mean as a player to interact with the world? Well, right now it's input buttons, watch cutscenes, learn where I'm supposed to go next, so on. But we're really stepping into a world where now the game is starting to interface with you. It's starting to ask you questions about what are you doing, what do you want to do next. So if you can build, as a creator, instant models, something that's in your head. You say, I want a dragon with a top hat, and all of a sudden it's there and it's in your game. As a solo indie dev, that is enough to get you across the finish line, to get you the beginning of a game. Whereas previously, you might have just stopped and said, I don't know what Blender is, and I'm honestly quite scared of it. I don't want to touch that. But now you can just do it. What that will do is allow indie teams like the ones that we publish to start bringing in more people to say, oh my God, everybody loves this dragon with the top hat. I want more dragons with top hats in my game. And they're going to need to refine this, right? At the end of the day, AI is a tool today to get you to where you want to be. It's not going to create the end goal. What the tool set that you guys have been working on, that as we're starting to develop our Horizon worlds, that is incredible, just exciting, is how fluid it can be from idea to execution, and then being able to make your execution the actual thing you wanted. I just think at the end of every single path of AI, humans will be more empowered to create faster and better things. And it's just painfully exciting.
The other thing that, by the way, is interesting,
Yeah.
so his name is Finn. I'm glad you liked Finn and Bobber Bay. And one of the things that we're finding is lowers the barrier to entry for creators, also lowers the barrier of entry for the customer. Because a lot of the worlds that come into, especially folks that are new denizens to the XR landscape or the metaverse, get a little overwhelmed, get a little like, and having a guide, having a character that you can interact with that tells you what you're curious about, helps you see the world, is something we've been seeing on the back end is making a huge difference in how people interact with the world and how much they enjoy the time spent, how much they start to co-create with Finn the experience that they're having.
Yeah, I think what Finn kind of represents to me, that's such a good name.
That's such a good name.
What I think Finn represents for me is, I said it earlier, like what the idea of a tutorial is today, we always say like show, don't tell, right? Whenever we're trying to help a team, like please don't put 80 text walls in your game. Well, Finn is basically all 80 of those text walls just whenever you need. That's really powerful. You're absolutely right. Getting people in and like reducing churn by allowing players to just instantly ask the question of like, I don't know how to jump. And then somebody could just tell them. You're not relying on other people. You're not relying on false information from a Wikipedia page that hasn't been updated in 85 years. It's live.
I think you've already highlighted a couple really great differentiators that we talked about. But here at AWE, the theme in AI and XR, AI needs XR, and XR loves AI. I've lost track of how many variations there are today. But when we talk about AI generated content, outside of this room, a lot of times people are going to think image generation, text-based chatbot, the kind of AI that is public. So would love to hear if you have thoughts on any other ways that XR immersive AI content is different from thinking about making AI generated?
Yeah, I think what is ubiquitous amongst most people is the idea of putting a prompt in and getting out a text generation or an image generation, and that is an MVP. That's the minimum viable product of what this can do. If you already have a few different apps out there that are almost these like companion type apps where people are creating friends and relationships with these bots, an extrapolation in the direction that the public is seeing, that is like, oh God, what are we doing? But at the at the core of it, what you're trying to do is create a relationship with the games, with the experiences, and with the technology that the promise of Siri was. There is this crazy outburst of people like, oh my God, I can ask her what the weather is, and she'll answer me. But it wasn't really an answer. It was a predetermined response, the same way most car navigation will say, call dad. And then if you say it wrong, you say one letter wrong, all of a sudden you're like getting directions to Morocco. What I think, what the actual implication, the actual use case is, it exists so much more in like, how easy can it be to create? How easy can it be to use? How fast can I learn something? How fast can I take my learning, my creation, and my ability, and then empower other people to go and create more things? So AI kind of leads to this Ouroboros of constantly creating and constantly iterating on the things that you just wouldn't have stepped into to begin with. So I think the use case of Fin, along with any other AI tools that are allowing people to get more robust access to creation, is just kind of behind the scenes. And I think that there's a real world in a few years where we just stop saying AI powered. It's like everything was a neural net, everything was machine learning, and now everything's AI. And eventually those things are still happening in every single product. They're just in the background because they just work, right? And that's the goal.
I think it's interesting too, because when folks think of the static and 2D, obviously the answer for us in XR is that it's the opposite. It's embodied, it's embedded, it's three-dimensional, and it transforms as you transform it, as you interact with it. And so you get this Jumanji style of transformation where you're taking it where you want it to go, not where it predetermined statically decided to went. Like you get this more transformative experience. And I think it kind of breaks your brain a little bit for what the potentials are for how to put AI everywhere.
Yeah, because typing in a prompt is very much a one-sided interaction. You are choosing to ask a question. But in the XR implication, the question just is naturally being asked, even if you don't realize it. By watching the player and realizing that player doesn't know how to do a combo, you don't just have to wait for a tip prompt on a loading screen to tell you how to do it. It can recognize that, and it can prompt you of like, hey, did you think you could do that? And then you can say, I had no idea. And then you can start to learn. Yeah, that's incredible. There's something about the embodiment in XR that just will never exist on a flat screen device.
Yeah, I think we've established here pretty well. There's a lot of really exciting decisions for creators, but also for consumers and players in these experiences. I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be building for creators in this new AI and XR environment. Especially Brandon, clearly you see a lot of people for creators. In the sequence today, are you seeing any challenges or unexpected roadblocks that creators are facing when using AI for their experiences?
Everything's perfect.
Great, done. I can go home.
No, there's so many. And I think the biggest hurdle that a lot of teams are facing is the ability of, I think a lot of people will say multimodal, right? The ability to see multiple different parts of the user's interaction, but it's multimodal in the sense of agent to agent connection. There's so much of a workflow among humans of like cooperation of I'm gonna have an idea, you're gonna have an idea, we're gonna bounce back and forth. But like every chatbot that you ever talk to, you're like, I think it'd be a great idea to drive my car off a cliff. And then the AI is going to go, that is a wonderful idea. Here are 5 ways we can accomplish that goal. What people actually do is they say, please don't drive off that cliff. That's a horrible idea. And maybe we should turn. So how do you kind of take these awful implementations today for the larger scale, trying to deal with a huge code base, trying to deal with a massive story, trying to deal with all these different characters and plot lines? Well, the way you deal with it is you have to have an AI bot that understands, hey, here's what we're trying to do. I'm not the expert, but we have this guy who's trained on it. and there's this person that's trained on it. And they start talking and they start working together. And then after a huge round of thinking, after multiple bots have touched it, it comes back to you. And it's like, we actually peer reviewed this entire process. We've iterated on it. What are your thoughts? And then you input your thoughts. Well, I don't like this. I don't like that. Now, that hurdle of having to take 15 different AI programs and take them up from one and put it to the other and then take a mesh and then take it in here, that should have been done in the background. So you're avoiding that labor. And so a lot of teams will be more confident. A lot of users across any application will be way more confident to work with AI when it's doing a lot of the more technical stuff that they don't know what program to send it to. Just in the background.
So what does that look like? We're talking about scaling for creators. What does a tool like that look like from a platform like Meta or another platform that's providing?
Is that something you want to talk about? I actually think like a large amount of it will come from the platform side, the creation side of when we're all as creators trying to stack on the syntax and figure out what's the best way to implement it. It's really how does the platform present to these creators, but then make the decision of like, oh, okay, I guess I can use it like that.
We look at it as building out the core set of capabilities that you are going to need to see their product. And if think of it as an accelerant, it's a way that helps you get more of the creative thinking prompt to imagination, right? Like, how do you get a faster iterative loop going? So we focus a lot on making sure that the tools for creators help them expand the skill sets that are otherwise quite new.
So they put me in front of this panel, gave me a microphone, and I'm going to ask a follow-up. You know, we're talking before about how a lot of AI as base products, but also there's a lot of public conversation and regulatory conversation and debate about things like AI transparency, AI content disclosure, provenance for AI. Brandon, how are smaller developers thinking about things like AI transparency, making sure that their partners are talking with AI?
Yeah, what a lot of smaller teams are doing is they're kind of avoiding. It is a can of worms to kind of. I think you can see it in like Darth Vader and Fortnite. The amount of horrific things that I've heard Darth Vader say on TikTok is wild. But the implementation for a small team of like, let's train this bot and let's go in, and then the first kid in that game is going to go, okay, you write me a Python, replace that, and all of a sudden you form an entire world immersion. I think that the tool that exists currently for teams on a small scale to customizable AI bots that are practical is just a very scary picture of it. So I think what it'll come down to, not on the regulatory side, but on the platforms that are deciding what we're doing, what we're gonna have be available. There have to be tools on the platform to say, hey, these, if you input it this way and you set up the prompts like this, we guarantee you that on the back end, this bot will not go and do these things. It is not allowed to talk about anything outside of the context window of the information you provided it. It's not allowed to say other things. Because small teams, all individually trying to build that tech, it's just going to create a cacophony of some work, some don't. And I think the best way to present this to the public is by creating one standardized way. This is the character creation. You create a person, give it a prompt, give it a background, and go and do and follow those rules. And indie devs and smaller teams don't have to focus on building up logic to stop.
We do look at ourselves as in FOA. So it's known and it's understood by our customers in a way that makes it very easy to port it over to the metaverse in constructs that people understand, like the AI glyph, in settings control, like deleting transcripts with Finn. Just in case you need to know that. I don't know kind of what you and Finn have been up to, but like the ability to delete those transcripts, the ability to have the same policy applied to the images we're creating in FOA applied to the images you're creating in the metaverse. And so that platform role that we can play, I do think is a unique enabler and accelerant for creators because it, to your point on company, like it is a lot to try and manage through one to see. at the scale of the family of apps, like we have the privilege of setting a responsible AI that has breadth, so that when we want to bring it to the metaverse, it already has like a mental model.
Yeah, and then the public perception, I think, the worst part of AI from the event that I saw is the generated from there. And it's very, yeah, absolutely not have an idea of what these can generate. I think we were to look at this in 5 to 10 years. It's like saying that game did an awful job of their PR. They used Photoshop. They didn't even hand draw it. It's ridiculous, right? Using a digital pen to draw something versus using a digital prompt to go and create something will be very close to the same level of like it is a digital artist degree. It's just are using it and lows not out just about what they do as that Photoshop can't just generate an image. But it was still a massive help to people's brushstroke. If you do that in real life, that's not cheating. Art. It's just another way. So it's not. That's the thing that they use in imagination. So, nobody's trying to make things just to get it done. And AI is a, you know, you can guarantee a way more than a starter than ever before.
Here, back into the fun stuff. So with the time we have left, I would love to hear from both of you what makes you most excited when it comes to GenAI and metaverse today and 5 years. Jill, let's start.
So I have the privilege of working on the characters of my side hustle being GenAI, which, as you said, is everybody's side hustle. And I get excited today in just seeing all the new creators and consumers, like just all the new ways it enables folks. We have projects going on internally that haven't released yet, where you just see new folks coming into the space thinking, oh, I can surmount this. I can do this. I can be a creator. I had a woman on my team. Maybe I'm a creator. I'm like, maybe you are. Like, we're about to find out. And there's something so, that democratization is so exciting and powerful now. And then when I look 5 years, I have this like, I don't know, I'm deep in only one sci-fi franchise. And I always think like, are we building the holodeck? I think we might be building the holodeck. And I kind of want to build the holodeck. Like, what a concept, right? Where it is an interactive space that I define as a customer, but that a creator has put together with rules and regulations that is a new way to experience an imaginative space that I've come up with. Like, there is something that was always tantalizing when the show thought of that as a concept. And so to think in 5 years, we're using GenAI to make the holodeck. And there's something really exciting.
Today, I mean, personally, and it would be, we do a lot of marketing requires it requires and what you have it will generate massive amounts of books. What are we? Imagine all the that are making these moves and just making it wow. The idea that next few years is wow. So what I see in my mind, all of the excitement today, I almost guarantee in 5 years. It is almost the exact same level of excitement because all we're seeing is Will Smith eating spaghetti, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, to the crazy models that are coming out of today. You're going to have a massive change across the entire industry, and it's going to be just as exciting in 5 years as that.
Right, we need to wrap it up. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks everyone for listening. I know we didn't get to have the Q&A, but I think we'll be able to stick around for a few minutes after. We'll go to the back so we can walk away.